So, there's a national fall in the birth rate in Jamaica, and that is something that is significant that we need to pay attention to, especially when it comes to some of the utterances by our political leaders with respect to education and the facilities for education. But before we get into today's video, let me thank you all for joining me today and subscribing to the channel. I want to big up my subscribers, especially. Thank you so much for rejoining me and for giving the channel the support you've always given us ever since you've discovered us. Yes. I want to say a special big up to those who are joining me for the first time and to the silent listeners. If you're joining for the first time and you have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Also, everyone, can you please share this video far and wide, because this is a message that needs to get to every single Jamaican, because a lot of us too busy working to make ends meet and providing for our families. We don't have no time to read. So what we do, we listen to what people say. And it is essential as Black people, I've said it all the time, that we have nothing but truth in our brain, because unlike the rest of people in the world, lies are very debilitating to us. While they can thrive on lies and succeed, lies actually carry us down. So it's essential that you get this message out. You have groups, you have family members, you have friends, and everyone. This is not exactly politics, even though it is in a political context because of the speakers. So I'm going to thank you for sharing. Also, can you all go ahead, please, and give the video a thumbs up from now on? Yes, please, give the video a thumbs up. And feel free, of course, to leave your comments in the comments section. So I want to thank you all in advance for your kindness. Now that we've had the preliminaries out of the way, let's get down to business. So, there is a national fall in the birth rate in Jamaica, and that is largely attributed to the decisions of our women of childbearing age, our young women of childbearing age, deciding to defer having or starting a family until some later years. That is mainly attributed to the fall in the birth rate. So unlike the rest of people in the world, they have a fertility problem, which is the reason why their birth rate is falling. We do not have that problem. We are still a fertile people, but our youngsters decide that they're going to pursue them career, and other reasons they decide they're not going to have children yet until they're good and ready. As usual, we like to draw for our receipts because we'll be pointing out something to you later on. And this article, Long-Lasting Birth Control Uptake Linked to Falling Birth Rate, says Health Official, and that was published in the Gleaner Friday, May 9, 2025, which is today. In this article, Dr. Marcia Graham, who is the Medical Officer of Health at the Westmoreland Public Health Services, she was giving the councillors of the municipal corporation a rundown of the state of public health in Westmoreland when it comes to the matter of births. And in Westmoreland, just as elsewhere in Jamaica, there was a decline in births over a number of years, due largely to the same reasons I outlined before, the young people deciding that they're not going to start families until later than usual. So then lock up shop where that is concerned. We're going to move on now to where it says here in Thursday's lead story in the Gleaner, Sister Dawn Williams Gordon, the ward manager of labor and delivery at the Kingston-based Victoria Jubilee Hospital, confirming the notable decline, described the current trend as unprecedented. Using hospital statistics to bolster her claim for the situation this year in comparison to last, Williams-Gordon said the hospital recorded 459 births in January, 364 births in February, 362 in March, and 342 in April, which contrasted sharply with last year, where the corresponding months all had over 500 births. So, what we're talking about for this year so far, from January to April, we've had 1,027 births at the Victoria Jubilee Hospital. And when you compare that to the between 2,000 and 3,000 births last year, we can see very clearly that there has been a significant decline in births so far at the Victoria Jubilee Hospital. Let's now look and see what the national situation is when it comes to the birth rate in Jamaica. Of course, we want to thank the Jamaica Observer for this article written May 9 of 2024. And it says, Jamaica continues to face a low birth rate problem, with the total number of live births in the country declining sharply over the last 20 years. They are telling you here that there is no doubt about it. The fact that our birth rate is declining is known for 20 years. All right, so maybe the first year when they made the notice, but then when I notice the following year that the births are going down all the way through for 20 years. Now, 20 years will be from when? 2005? This was what, 2024? 20 years would have made it 2004 them start to notice. Now, you must be saying to yourself, then when Michelle tell me all of this for patience, please, patience. I'm coming to it. Just a little patience. So, what is it that the Observer said? In 2021, there were 31,276 live births compared to 40,508 in 2010, that's the previous 11 years, and 56,134 in the year 2000. The Observer is clearly telling us here that the authorities were aware of the fall in the birth rate in Jamaica. In the year 2000, using that as a benchmark, we had 56,134 births. By 2010, 10 years later, it fell 16,000 to 40,508. And then it fell another 9,000 to 31,276 11 years later. There can be no doubt about it that there is a fall in the birth rate in Jamaica. And I don't know who in Jamaica don't know that before I even tell you now. Maybe you didn't know the figures, but you would have known. Not true? Let me know in the comment section if you knew before I told you. What does this mean? It means that in 2000, where we had 56,137 births, and 21 years later, the birth rate fell to 31,276. When you do the little calculation, what we get is that there was a fall in the birth rate by 44%. So the next question we ask ourselves is what this percentage means in terms of numbers and the situation in the school in terms of the number of classrooms that are available. Let's find out. And for this information, we turn to the Jamaica Gleaner. We want to thank them for their report of November 17, 2024. And this is what it said. Primary school education for children between the ages 6 and 12 is compulsory in Jamaica, and the data shows that 384,689 enrolled last year, which would have been 2023. 85% of the 453,590 spaces available in public schools island-wide were occupied. What is the Gleaner telling us? That in 2023, because the year just started for 2025. We don't have that information for last year, but we have the information for what it was in 2023. And in 2023, we had 453,590 spaces available in public schools island-wide were occupied. Now we're talking about primary schools right through the island. That's what we have available. But we only had enrolled 384,689 youngsters. 85% of the space then is occupied. But then you may say, oh, but them risers are run PNP. Them not say that. We have plenty children who are not in school because of lunch money. Them not have no lunch money and them not have no bus fare. The question is that true? And what are the facts? According to the Ministry of Education report, a 99% completion rate for enrolled primary school students. That's what they're reporting, 99% completion rate. However, it acknowledges that less than 1% of girls and 2% of boys are not attending school according to a 2022 survey. It's a bit old, but it's the only one we have available, evidently. So the Ministry of Education is reporting that of the children that are in school, primary school, 384,689, only less than 1% of the girls are not attending school and less than 2% of the boys are not attending school. They gave no reason, but that would be the figures. So, this information provided by the Ministry of Education is telling us in no uncertain terms that we have enough primary school level spaces available and not enough children. And why is that? According to the ministry said that the declining student population in primary schools, and they're quoting them now, is shaped by several interconnected factors, including migration, lower birth rates, and shifts in demographic patterns. Some schools have also cited crime as a contributing factor to the exodus from certain areas. And I do recall seeing in the news, in one or two instances, road breakaways and bridge collapsing and all them something there is the reason why the children can't attend certain schools. So the ministry is reporting as the reason why the population is declining in primary schools. Part of it is migration. The children gone foreign, the low birth rate, and then they talk about shift in demographic patterns. What do they mean by that? For that explanation, we turn to Statin. Statin is the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. They are responsible for gathering all of the information of what is going on and put it in a statistical form for us so that government can plan and be informed about the situation in the country. Now, it says Statin has indicated that Jamaica has an aging population. The decline in births has led to a smaller proportion of school-age children as the overall demographic shift. With fewer young families, fewer children are entering primary schools, the ministry told the Sunday Gleaner. So when they talk about demographic shifts, they're talking about basically the age profile of the people in Jamaica. So when you hear them talk about 0 to 14 years and 14 to 24 years and so on, and then they try to determine how many persons fall into that category, that is what they're talking about, the demographics. And whenever there's a shift, what they mean is now that there are more people in one group than in the next. So there was a time when there was a very high number of persons in Jamaica who were under the age of 25. That's when they started to introduce family planning and try to get the population down in terms of the birth rates that were happening at that time. And that has now caused a shift. So now we have fewer people being born and more people living longer. We're living up to about 75 years on average for females and 73 years on average for men. And the overall average is about 75 years. So people are living longer and there are fewer birth rates, and this is what they mean by the demographic shift. And the demographic shift is in the age profile of the people of Jamaica currently compared to what it was in the past. Follow? Yes. So the Ministry of Education cited migration as well as the decline in the birth rates as to the reasons why we have fewer than the number of spaces available for our children in primary schools. Now, there can be no doubt about it. The Statin reports it, and the Ministry of Education reports it, and we have the information here. In the Gleaner report, they said in 2023-2024, figures reveal that nearly 40% of Jamaica's primary schools, that's 240 out of 604, so make a note of that, we have 604 primary schools. I'm making a note myself, are operating at 50% or less of their capacity, right? 40% of the schools are operating at 50% or less of the capacity. Among these, 34 schools are operating at 20% or less of their full potential. These schools together offered 72,205 spaces in 2023, but only 25,113 of those seats were filled. And of course, there are schools that are overpopulated, but we're looking at the 40%, right? Now we're going to check and see some more information. Let's check for the high schools quickly and see what their status are. So the Gleaner put out another story dated December 8, 2024, and they now deal with the high school situation. Overpopulation hit 65 high schools, and that was the lead story. The article says 65 of Jamaica's 173 high schools are overpopulated, raising concerns about teaching quality, learning conditions, and resource availability in institutions accommodating more students than their designed capacity. So you're talking about 65 out of the 173 high schools. That's 38%. So 38% of our high schools are overpopulated. However, they further reported that the 173 high schools provided a total space count of 195,080, of which only 186,304 were occupied last school year. And they are talking about now 2023. So only 8,776 spaces are available in high school. But the fact of the matter is they are not fully occupied. And then when you take into consideration the fall in the birth rate, then that figure would only get higher in terms of the amount of available spaces in the high school, because we already saw what is going on in the primary schools. So when we take all of this information in mind, taking into account the number of students versus the availability of space in both the primary and high schools, and the fact that we have less students than we have space, we now turn our attention to Mark Golding and something that he said yesterday. Because when we look at the things that he said, sometimes we have to wonder, not true? And yesterday, it further highlights our suspicion that this man knows nothing about what is going on in this country. Now, this is what he said on his Twitter page, and you will find the same comment on his Facebook page. He says, "They say they choose Jamaica, but for 9 years, not one school has been built." And the they that he's talking about is the Labour Party government. Listen to what the man said one day ago, They say they choose Jamaica, but for 9 years, not one school has been built. Now, what does this man know about this country? Up to this day, he knows that the population is declining, And if the population is declining and there are spaces in the school, particularly in the primary school, what would be the reason for the government now to go out there go build school? What does he know about this country? This is the man who is seeking to be Prime Minister of Jamaica. And he does not know that the birth rate in Jamaica is declining. It declined dramatically by 44%. What therefore is the need for us to be building school? Now, if he's going to be talking about our children deserve better than termite-ridden desks, waterlogged roofs, and learning in makeshift classrooms. Now, makeshift classrooms would have been created for a reason. And you are talking about now termite-ridden desks. What that have to do with building of schools in Jamaica? And if there are waterlogged roofs, what does that have to do with the building of schools in Jamaica? I don't understand his logic. For sure, if there are makeshift schoolrooms in Jamaica, then that would suggest that either there is not enough space because of overcrowding, which is what he would be suggesting, or the children are in makeshift classrooms because their classrooms are under repair. Whichever it is, does that require the building of schools, especially in circumstances where the population has fallen by 44% in 21 years? He says he wants to be Prime Minister, and the other clowns over there, the Rice camp, talking about him going to be the next Prime Minister, and therefore he would be the one who would be determining the policy for Jamaica, he and his team. This idea that he had to come out and state this in public, that in 9 years the government don't build one school, was this something that Damian Crawford would have said or told him that this is something that we should go out and say because in the PNP government we build school and they in 9 years don't build one? Is this what happened? But Mark, if that is what happened, then something is wrong with your team, because the facts remain that the population is declining and we have enough space in our primary schools to accommodate more children. The Gleaner reported last year, November, that 40% of our primary schools, 240 of them out of 604, are operating at less than 50% of their capacity. And overall, 15% space is available in primary levels. And there are 8,776 spaces available in the high school. And in another few years, the high schools will be as badly affected by the fall off in the birth rate, just like the primary schools are experiencing today. So what are you talking about? They say they choose Jamaica, but for 9 years, not one school has been built. And that's supposed to mean something? What it certainly means is that you don't know anything about Jamaica. And if it was Damian Crawford who said this foolishness, then I don't know what to make of him. But what I find puzzling is what Mark Golding says and the ad that they are running. He says, right, that they are termite ridden desks. The children deserve better than termite-ridden desks, waterlogged roofs. I want you to listen now to what the ad says.
Not one new high school built in 9 years. Children learn in church halls. Desks falling apart. Termite damaged roofs. Is that true in Jamaica?
What is most peculiar about this recording is that when you listen to it, there is no feedback. But when you record it, there is this massive feedback that you're getting in the recording. Whether you record it on Twitter or you record it on Google. I don't know how that happened, but that is how it is set. But nonetheless, we are not deterred by whatever mechanism they use to have this thing distorted, because I'm sure it's not my app that I'm using that is causing it. So the ad says, not one high school built in 9 years. What did Mark say here? They say they choose Jamaica, but for 9 years, not one school has been built, right? So the ad is saying high schools, not one high school built in 9 years. It went on to say, children learning in church halls, desk falling apart, termite damaged roof. Is that choosing Jamaica? Right? Well, Mark never mentioned nothing about the children learning in the church halls. What he said instead, right, is that the children are learning in makeshift classrooms. Is that him called church hall? You know how many years Picnic are learning in a church hall in Jamaica? That is not new. That are gone from the British were here, right? Then now it says desk falling apart. That's what the ad said. And termite damaged roof. So it is a roof that was damaged by termite. What Mark said? That the children deserve better than termite-ridden desks and waterlogged roofs? Come on, get on a story straight. Which is it? Is it the termite-damaged roof or waterlogged roof? And is it the desk that is falling apart? Or is it termite-ridden desks? Make up in your mind. And then you talk about Picnic learning in a church hall, and at the same time you are saying makeshift classrooms. Make up your mind, man. Which one of the stories are you telling? And then what is most fascinating is a clip that they showed in the ad. Read what you see here. What I'm seeing, mess in schools. More than 30% of institutions in Manchester fall short of public health requirements. So by flashing this across the screen, they are telling us the source of the information that the Englishman is writing about, and that is the subject of this ad. So let us go and read the article, which by the way was a Gleaner article written September 2, 2024, last year, and just before the opening of the new school year, reporting on these same institutions. And it them a talk about, so make we now go look and see what them a talk about. So the article started by saying close to 70% of the 217 educational institutions across Manchester have been dubbed satisfactory. So they're talking about Manchester alone, nowhere else in Jamaica. And remember, this was what they flashed across the screen to tell us what the source of the information that they were giving us was. So Manchester is where the problem was, according to them. Now let's read on. Now it says that this is based on the public health requirements, but the remaining schools have been struggling with issues including pest control, sewage leaks, and water sanitation, right? The other 30%. The article went on to say in a report from the Manchester Health Department dated August 31, that will be 2024, recommendations have also been made for 4 schools to treat their water before school reopens today. These are Grovetown Primary, Woodlands Primary and Infant School, and Marley Hill Primary and Infant. And we're going to read all of the article. So it says, the main concern identified at the schools, those 3 that I just mentioned, was water sanitation. There was also an issue with inadequate pest proofing at Grovetown Primary and Marley Hills Primary. So those 2 schools had a problem with pest control. That's what that is saying. Inspection was carried out last month by the Manchester Health Department in light of concerns raised about the health condition in the schools. And they are quoting from the report. Unsatisfactory conditions in schools were primarily due to inadequate pest control, school canteens not meeting food handling regulations requirement, dysfunctional excreta disposal facilities, and water sanitation. So those were the 4 things that they identified as having been the problem in these 3 schools. Grovetown Primary, Woodlands Primary and Infant, as well as Marley Hill Primary. Right, let's go through them again. Inadequate pest control. The school canteen did not meet the food handling regulation requirements, and they had dysfunctional excreta disposal facilities, something wrong in them bathroom, now go and go there, sir, and water sanitation. That's what the report said. And remember, this was, they said today, so that was the start of the school year that they are talking about. So it goes on to say the schools cited as unsatisfactory were provided with the necessary recommendations to remedy breaches for the start of the new school year. And this would be the other schools as well, not just these three, but the other 30% of schools. So here is the interesting part which relates to this ad. It would appear. Additionally, the Manchester Health Department will continue to carry out inspections within the first 2 weeks of the school year to find out the extent to which those schools that were deemed unsatisfactory have fully complied with public health requirements. In other words, they told them what they need to do, and they are going to go back and inspect. So the schools are therefore expected to make changes. Right? That's what this is saying. It goes on to say in this section that I highlighted in red, vector control activities are also being done across the parish, including the school compounds. Fogging exercises will also continue into the start of the new school year. So what this is telling us is that while the Manchester Health Department was carrying out their inspections, there were vector control taking place in the schools. You follow? And what this is further telling us is that the authorities were aware of the problem and they were doing something about it. So the Gleaner turning now to other schools. It says, according to the report, Prattville Primary and Infant School has been relocated due to ongoing renovation work affected by Hurricane Beryl, which damaged the roof. Is this the roof that Mark is calling the waterlogged roof? While the ad is claiming that there was termite damaged roof? Let us read on and find out. The Gleaner went on to say the primary school will operate from Asia Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the infant school will be at the Prattville Assembly of God. The Adventist Church was assessed and deemed satisfactory. So is this what Mark Golding was talking about? Or were children deserving better than makeshift schoolrooms? Is this what he was talking about? While the ad, because he was saying that in response to the ad, and the ad that they were running said that the children were learning in school halls. And then they were kind enough to flash across the screen an article that was written by the Gleaner, and that's what we're reading from. It says here, clear as day, that the Prattville Primary and Infant School was relocated due to ongoing renovation work because the school was affected by Hurricane Beryl, which damaged its roof. And these wicked people are coming to I must the comrade them a lie to, and me and you, because we not trust them. But the comrades listen to them and trust them. Some of them in an event, especially the risers and those who don't really know what's going on. At them are trying to fool up and tell that the government of Jamaica is wicked. Them not only did they not build one high school in a situation where the population birth rate is falling, they not build one high school and how we picnic them and learn in a church hall. And here it is in the very same paper that they flashed on the screen to tell us where the source of the information is. The children were only in the church hall because the school roof was damaged by Hurricane Beryl. What a wicked set of people. What a wicked set of people. In the very ad, it said that it was the termites who had damaged the roof, not the hurricane. Now, is it possible that the roof was indeed being eaten up by termites and then the hurricane came and then did damage? Very possible. But they made no mention that it was a hurricane that damaged the roof that caused the children to be relocated. In other words, the picnic them had them school to go back to. They were just moved temporarily until the government can fix them roof. What a wicked set of people, eh? The report further noted that the Plowden Primary and Infant School was visited twice last month but was closed on each occasion. That school suffered major damage to its roof during the passage of Hurricane Beryl, and no repair work reportedly has been done. The inspection team, as a result, will revisit the school today. That was then, 2024. Here they're reporting that when the Gleaner visited the school, there was some electrical wires hanging down, and the principal, Karen Smith, was saying that she had raised a concern about it, that it could be posed a risk, and noting that it needed to be fixed urgently and that it had been reported to the relevant authorities. So up to that time at Plowden, the electrical wires were hanging down. And that, of course, again was due to the Hurricane Beryl passage. And finally, the Gleaner said the team also stopped at the Marley Hill Primary, where several water tanks that were dislodged by the hurricane were observed on the ground. However, workers were seen cutting overgrown grass and building a facility to store garbage awaiting collection by the authorities. So work was being done even as this inspection took place at the primary school. The inspection was going on, and so were the work being carried out to have the school ready for the new school year. That's what this is saying. That's what the Gleaner said they observed when they went visiting. The Gleaner went on to say several schools in the parish, especially those in the southern section, which were heavily ravaged by the hurricane, are still grappling with the effects of the disaster, which has created further challenges ahead of today's beginning of the new school year. The hurricane, remember, was July 3 when it landed in Jamaica, right? And this is what that Englishman was talking about. He was talking about something that happened in 2024, right? September. It was a report in the Gleaner about the situation in 30% of the schools in Manchester, right? And he was writing about that situation yesterday as if it is something that is ongoing. And like stupid people, they went and flashed the article, seemingly not to realize that it was from last year, September. Or in any event, they think that we would not have recognized it, apparently. So yesterday he posted this comment of his and played the ad, flashed the newspaper article, which was dated September of 2024, and think that nobody would notice and go and check it out. How dumb can you be? So the $1 million question you must be asking is, what is the situation at the school? Well, let the school tell us itself. So the school, of course, is on Facebook, and this is December 1, 2024, Prattville Primary. They're telling us now what the situation is, at least on the December 1, 2024. As you will recall, the primary school was operating from the Asia Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the infant school was at the Prattville Assembly of God. So the primary school was at the Asia Seventh-day Adventist Church. So according to the Facebook page at Prattville Primary School, we are pleased to announce that effective Monday, December 2, 2024, students who were temporarily housed at Asia Seventh-day Adventist Church will return to our school campus. So from December 2, 2024, the primary school returned to the school campus. And either in December or sometime in January, the infant school returned to the school campus. So what it is that Mark Golding is talking about when he said they say they choose Jamaica, the Labour Party government said they choose Jamaica, but for 9 years, not one school has been built in a situation where we have 15% space in the schools, right? No school has been built at all, according to him. And then he went on to say, our children deserve better than termite-ridden desks, waterlogged roofs, and learning in makeshift classrooms, without saying where all these things taking place. He was referring to the ad which was talking about the situation in Manchester after the hurricane struck Jamaica. And the schools that they were referring to, particularly the Prattville Primary School, they picked them going back at them classroom and them very contented and happy. Just go and look at them page Prattville Primary School on Facebook, and you will see the nice facilities that they now have. Right? So this man is clearly out of touch with reality. He don't know nothing about Jamaica, nothing at all, and he has lived here, according to him, all his life. And for him, a man who we are told by Katie that is a very bright man, not to know anything about Jamaica would suggest, in no uncertain term, that he doesn't know because he doesn't want to know. And because he doesn't care to know. You come and you make a statement like this without doing your research. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And even if he knew at the time, he clearly doesn't know what the present situation is, and he don't care to find out. And this is a man want to leave Jamaica. I tell you what, this man don't want to leave Jamaica. That is something that we think in our mind. He has no interest in the country. He's just running around talking a whole heap of crap because he's trying to preserve his spot for his friend Bunting. He is holding on to the position of leader of the opposition and president of the PNP, not because he wants it, but because if him give it up, somebody else going to get it, and his friend Bunting will be left out in the cold. So he's suffering, pretending that him interested, talking up a lot of foolishness on political platform, just until Bunting find himself a seat, and then he just hand over. Right? That's how they think it's going to work. Good luck with them and that. Anyway, folks, that's where we'll leave it for today. Thank you so much for joining me, for sharing, liking, and subscribing, and leaving your comments in the comments section. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.